We've got an illustration here of how domain names work. So the org is actually the top level domain, Wikipedia is the second level, and ru is the subdomain. So you'll notice that even when we go to Google, Google has a subdomain, uses the www, which is also a subdomain. And what a domain does is essentially allows you to have a visual string representation that will connect to your hosted files on the server. So when we're looking at Wikipedia here, we can see that this file is actually sitting on the Wikipedia host, and wikipedia.org is going to be the domain name that they're using. And this domain name, once you type it into your browser, there's a listing of all the domain names within the DNS, and the DNS is able to translate the domain name and find the IP address. And IP addresses are within every computer. Any device that's connecting to the internet has its own IP address. So the domain name gets translated by the DNS to the representing IP address, and then that server that's holding that domain name is able to translate it and understand where the files are located that need to be represented for the domain name that's just been typed in. And I'm just looking at this article here on Wikipedia, and it says in 2014 the number of active domains reached was 271 million domains. So that means that if you're looking for a domain name, it's probably already taken. So a lot of times when I am looking for a domain name, I'll use domain.com because they actually have the ability to return back results. They do this suggested results, and that actually works really well because they take the words that are being entered in here and they do a comparison of the wording. First of all, they're going to check to see if the domain is available, and if it's not actually available, they're going to give me suggestions. So right now they're saying that they're doing a check. They're checking for webdeveloper.com. So we can see that webdeveloper.com is taken, .co is taken, .net is taken. And this is fairly obvious that these are taken. They also give you some suggestions here. So they've got these premium domains, and this is how much you can purchase them for. So if you want to buy mywebdeveloper.com, the going rate is just over $5,000. So they've got a whole bunch of options here. And then when you look down here, these suggestions, these ones are actually available. So if I wanted to take something like mynetdev.com or myonlinedev.com, so these ones would be available, and you could simply purchase them for $10 a year. So this is why I always go to domain.com, because I find this suggestion tool is really great for finding additional domain names and then just doing that brainstorming to do some more word combinations. So usually what I do is I'll start out with a list of words that I like to include that indicates what I want it to do. I try to keep it as short as possible because you don't want to have a really long name, as well as you don't want to have all of these repeating characters. So internet app programmer, 3 Ps. Usually when people are typing in web addresses, two in a row should be a limit, and it should actually be a word, because this could be cause for spelling mistakes. So you want to try to avoid those type of domain names, as well as domain names that are just really don't make any sense, that are hard to remember. So try to avoid those type of domain names. Look for something that's simple. The shorter the better, and the more the words make sense, the better as well. And for the most part, you're probably going to be looking at getting a domain name with 3 words in it, because the 2-word ones, they're really hard to come by, and the 1-word ones are virtually impossible to find. Because remember again that there's 271 million domain names registered, so you have to really be open to different ideas with domain names, and check out to see what's available at domain.com. And also, of course, you've got the ability to use different suffixes other than .com, but .com is preferred. If you are creating a domain name, you do have an option to go with ones like .ninja, .global. So here on Wikipedia, we have your standard top-level domains, so .com, .org, and what they're used for. .net, .int, .edu. These are for educational institutions. These are originally for nonprofit organizations. .net, and there's explanations here. .gov for government. .mil for military. And then for every country, they've got a different top-level domain. So some of them, you're going to see that they're used quite often. So some of them are really capitalizing. If they've got a really cool, a really nice top-level domain, you're going to be able to see them more often within these suggestions as well. And it's quite a lot of them. And then there's also brand new ones that are just coming out, so they're really opening up quite a lot of these top level domains. So all of these are available, and you can see here, so we've got .ninja, .global, .expert, .reviews, .soy, .lawyer. So you do really have the ability to pick a nice customized domain with a top level domain, with one that might not be as popular. They've got one beer and so on. So really this list is always growing and expanding. So there is opportunity to get one, but keeping in mind that most people wouldn't be used to typing in your website name .tennis or .tips. They're mainly used to doing .com. So you're going to leave yourself open again to having that possibility that people are actually going to be typing in the wrong domain name, and a lot of times this might be hard for users to understand. If you've got your web developer .bar, it really doesn't make a lot of sense, and users, when they are going to the domain name, they're going to be trying to type in .com. So always keep that in mind when you are picking a domain name. So really there's quite a lot to choose from, and try to stay with the .coms, because you'll find as well that within Google the .coms do much better within search results, so you got to be thinking too for SEO purposes. So again, when you are picking a domain name, it should just make sense with what is on your website and what your website is going to be about. So make sure it's something that reflects what you're doing on your website, and that just makes for a better user experience. Domain names aren't actually bought, they're only registered. So when you do pay for a domain name, you're paying for a certain period, and you can purchase a domain name for anywhere from 1 to 10 year period. And all of these ones down here, when you are purchasing this, all you're doing is really purchasing the rights for that domain name to be able to pay the domain name fees and register it. So these are registered under somebody else, and what you would be doing is, if you bought one of these for $5,000, you would be paying that person in order to be able to register the domain name and take possession of that domain name. And when you do register a domain name, a lot of times the best way to purchase it is to actually just purchase it through wherever you're doing your hosting, because then they can already pre-configure it and you don't have to worry about all the configuration of the domain name, and you're going to have it all in one place. As well, you can, if you do get familiar with that, you're able to change it and update it and repoint the domain name. So if you own the domain name, you don't necessarily have to stay on the server, the host that you purchased it on, and you can also transfer between hosts as well. So you can transfer domain names at any time. You're not locked in for that 1 year period. You've just paid for it so that it's registered under your name for the 1 year period. And you can move those around if you wanted to between different hosting accounts and different registering. Yeah, you can re-register it as well. And then, of course, every year, if you're only paying for the first year, you're going to have to renew that domain name when the renewal comes up for the registration.